Welcome to the After Dark podcast, the podcast in which Anthony leads his unknowing friend Konrad by the hand through TV shows. Will Konrad like them? Will Konrad hate them? Will Konrad predict what's going to happen, or will he be lost in the dark? Find out now, only on the After Dark podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Anthony James, and that's Konrad.
Hello!
How are you, Konrad?
I'm good. I have been, I'm not going to say blown away by this episode of the OA.
Say it,
but holy smokes, there's a lot of stuff that are going on in this episode. I was furiously taking notes, and this is the most note-rich and theory-rich episode of the show thus far. I'll say that much.
I agree, because I've got nearly 4 pages of notes here, and I found myself, when I was reliving this again, like I've watched this series a number of times, even season 2, but when I was reliving it this time, because I'm doing it week to week with you and sort of really trying to analyze it and stuff now, just how different it is really blew me away, even though I've seen it multiple times before.
I did, like, if we didn't, I mean, we'll get into it, but if the opening scene didn't feature Prairie, I would have been checking Netflix to be like, have I put the right show on?
Yeah.
Like,
someone actually said in the Discord, in the Culture Cave Discord, that they were checking, after 15 minutes, is this the OA? Like, what is it?
Yeah, have I put on something that has a name suspiciously like the OA, that is a completely different show with a completely different set of characters, because I don't recognise anyone in this.
yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Right, okay, so obviously, guys, you see, we're going to have a lot to talk about. How have you been, Konrad? What have you been up to?
Looking forward to the end of the UK lockdown. It's coming up fast, which will be good. Apart from that, really not much, to be honest. Like things continue to be a hellish nightmare here in old Blighty. What about you?
Well, actually, yeah. So some of the
you're in Blighty as well, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, actually, technically, I'm not, because it's actually
that's true. Yeah.
United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So
yes, that's a fair point. I don't. Yeah, I've never really thought about that before. I suppose Blighty.
We have a union with Great Britain. You can't have a union with something that you are.
That's true. It's a good point. Yeah, we don't. And as much as I may be tempted to do so, we're not going to get into sectarian politics on the After Dark podcast.
Not yet. So basically, that is. Oh yeah. So I was going to say, you're saying the end of the lockdown's coming up. That's true. But also, like I've had some exam pupils come back to school, so I have to drive all the way down to work, 45 minutes, teach for an hour, and then drive back, and then teach the rest of them remotely. So it's been a lot of driving.
Yes. Actually,
Ema's also just started a job in the film industry, so I'm dropping her off to work too. So I'm literally driving probably 50% of the country's length every single day at the minute.
Have you got the OA on the phone on the dashboard and like recording your notes with a dictaphone?
No, I'm not watching anything while I'm driving. Don't you worry. Although I will say, I do worry. Funny you say that. I do worry sometimes. Sometimes I listen to music on my phone on YouTube. Like I'll put a playlist on, and then I've got a phone holder, so I'll turn my phone so it's not facing me, right? Yeah. And I'll just listen to the music. And I think to myself, if I had a crash and they got my phone and looked at like the background of the phone, see what I was doing, technically I'm watching YouTube right now.
Yeah, that's a potentially damning and indicting piece of evidence against you there.
I think I probably need to download the Spotify app just to
invest in a Spotify account.
We've already got one. That's the funny thing. But we only pay for the one account, so when Ema listens to it, I can't. But anyway, guys, we're getting off track here. So guys, could you please subscribe to the Culture Cave on YouTube if you haven't already? Subscribe on audio apps if that's how you listen to podcasts. If you could like this video, it'd be very, very nice. You can click the little bell as well. Apparently that actually does notify you. I don't know why they don't notify you of your subscriptions anyway, but apparently you need to click that. If you want to send an email to adpodmail@gmail.com, we do read those emails, and we also take questions for Konrad, either there or on this video for the next episode. A lot of people are giving us a lot of suggestions about what we could do on the After Dark podcast in the future. I think we're almost pretty certain we're doing the Westworld next, because it is such a huge show. A lot of people would have seen it. I think we could all have a chat about it. Also, we do know that the quality apparently does go down towards the end. So
I'm looking forward to that, though.
It'd be fun to actually chronicle that on the show. People have also suggested, a lot of people suggested The Leftovers. It's not a show that I've seen, but I've heard very good things about it. So I do need to check it out and become familiar with it before we bring it to the podcast. But it's something definitely we could do in the future.
What was that like secondary school comedy called from when we were like in our early 20s, The In-Betweeners? That's what I always think of when everyone says The Leftovers. I'm like, it's not really a theory crafting show, but
yeah.
I think The Leftovers might be something different.
Yeah, The Leftovers, I think it's like people left over from some anomaly or something. I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, okay.
I think Liv Tyler's in it, actually, but I'm not 100% sure.
Old Arwen.
Yeah, Arwen, yeah, one of those. But anyway, thanks very much, guys, for joining us for this episode. We are going to be getting into the breakdown. I think I've said all I need to do. Oh, yeah, link to the Discord in the description. Link to a t-shirt in the description if you want to support the podcast.
Woo.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Oh, let's break it down!
Season 2 of the OA opens up with a text or title card. And it says, well, it's not actually a title card. I can't remember what the name of this episode was.
I didn't write it down either, actually, which is uncommon for me. Normally I do.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll figure it out later on when I'm doing the rating. Oh, it's Angel of Death. Angel of Death.
Okay.
I know, very, very cryptic, isn't it? But anyway, it opens up with, it says on the screen, 7 hours and 46 minutes later.
Yes.
Okay, so that's
Yes.
Time has passed, and it starts up with a skateboarder going down a hill.
I'll correct you there, Anthony. It's a longboarder. Thank you very much. Not a skateboarder.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. It's funny because whenever you, what we say, a boarder then? Because whenever you're riding a mountain bike or a road bike, you still just say a cyclist. So.
Yeah, I might have just put my foot in it there, and maybe longboarding is included in like the pantheon, the sort of the broader genus skateboard there. So possibly, but yeah,
someone was partaking in extreme sports.
Sure, yeah, and I think if you'd have asked me. If you'd have put a gun to my head at the end of the last episode of the final of the previous season and said, "How is the second season going to open?" I would not have imagined that it would open with some dudes longboarding past prairie in a sparkly red cocktail dress and off a cliff. Like that was not high on my list of potential beginnings for this season.
Yeah, off a cliff into the water.
Yeah.
Is the way that it was shot? Here's a question for you. Is the way that it's shot, we're introduced to the character of Kareem Washington, played by Kingsley Ben-Adir. Is the way that it's shot there and the transition would imply to you that he dreamt that, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's my read of it.
Very leading question, I will say, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that is my read of it, is that he is dreaming, he has dreamt that, and if this show has taught us anything about dreams, or particularly, especially vivid dreams, it's that they can precede events that are actually going to take place, or perhaps this is depicting something that's already happened. He doesn't seem at this point in his life like he's really into longboarding, to be honest, so he could, he could be recalling something, but yeah, I think you don't show a kind of slightly, well, let's use a handy adjective here, a dreamlike sequence, and then show someone waking up without it being as strongly implied that was them dreaming about it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're in the world of Kareem Washington now.
Yes.
He lives on a boat.
He does.
He wakes up. I actually heard within that dream, I heard like the banging of the door because I knew it was coming, so I was listening for it. The granny of this character, Michelle, we'll find out in a minute, was banging on the door of his boat. And then when it came into the real world, the banging continued, and we were in the real world then. So basically, Kareem Washington seems to be some sort of private investigator.
Private eye. Yeah, it's like I believe once what is it called? Chinatown. I believe the Jack Nicholson Roman Polanski film noir, I believe, is set in San Francisco as well, and I feel like he's kind of occupying that role of like you don't put a PI in something unless you're going for some kind of noirish tropes, and Kareem Washington is our guy for this run around with it. But we know we're in San Francisco because they use the Golden Gate Bridge, which I would put money on the establishing shots of the Golden Gate Bridge being the most common establishing shot in all of cinema and television, because it's just like maybe Big Ben or something like that is a pretty common one as well. But I feel like there aren't many cities that are defined by one single landmark as much as San Francisco is defined by the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, I think you're pretty clear. I was actually in San Francisco, and it is very striking. So I can understand why they want to as well. But also, yeah, it's shorthand. This is where we are. Although this does actually take place in a couple of cities within California. This episode, which we'll talk about later on. But okay, so grandmother's at the door. Michelle is missing. There was a fair bit of information in this episode. Like every scene had a lot.
Oh my god, there's so much shit in this episode. Like not shit in a bad way. I was just like, good God, slow down for a second, all right? Let me catch up.
Honestly, I had to while I was trying to make the notes of everything, so what they were saying, I honestly had to like click the back 10 seconds button.
Oh, but yeah, absolutely me as well. Like there's probably a load of stuff I've missed, to be honest. So that what you've just said there about this taking place in a couple of cities in California, I didn't actually even catch that it left San Francisco at any point. So
yeah, went to Oakland.
Yeah, okay, I did catch they went to Oakland. Actually, now you mention it, but yeah, even this scene is like, it's like it's really like interestingly written actually, because it's, you know, they're giving you information that's almost like inseminating it into you. It's like you're starting to think about what's said in this scene throughout the rest of the episode. So she's talking about her, you know, her granddaughter going missing, and then, you know, gives a photo of her granddaughter to Kareem Washington, which looks distinctly like Buck before Buck transitioned, and then is talking about how long it's been since she saw like her granddaughter, but she's also talking about her sending her money. She's showing text messages with emojis that I was like, we need to get a zoomer on this case, because I'm too old to understand what octopus wine crying prayer key means. And you know, say what you will about Kareem Washington as a PI, but I think he finds a zoomer. I don't know what the cutoff for zoomers actually is, but I think Zendaya might be one when we get to her.
Yeah, well, I would assume Zendaya's a zoomer.
She's got the zoomer energy, if not the age. I'll say that much for her.
Yeah, exactly. So he finds out very quickly that the grandmother is Vietnamese. So then he straight away goes over to his mate Duke.
Yeah, I like Duke.
Duke served in
immediately
Vietnam.
Suspicious when he's like, do you speak Vietnamese? He's like, maybe. It's a simple question, Duke.
You served in Vietnam for a year, didn't you? It's like a year. Jeez, he's good for a year. Like he wasn't even in the army. He was just like serving in a deli. Like that's how good he is. He was
I guess
time.
Is that the implication then? Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, I guess the implication is he served in the Vietnam War, which he doesn't look old enough to have been in the Vietnam War, because that was in like the late 60s.
Yeah, but he's also Australian.
Yeah, that's weird. Did Australia have a war with Vietnam that we don't know about?
Well, I would show my ignorance of my home nation here. I have no idea.
Yeah, maybe he served in like the Peace Corps or something like that. Like he looked like a bit of a sort of Greenpeace kind of type. So maybe
he's living on a boat. You know, that probably was it.
Yeah, sure.
So they repeated a few times Michelle is invisible.
Yes.
So they mentioned a lot of details here. I don't know whether I should spell a lot of these details out for you, but I'm sure we've talked about. I'm sure you were taking notes about them. If I say something that you didn't know, sorry, listeners. It's just the way it's going to go. So basically, because I'm just recanting the dialogue, basically, right? So they talked about that Michelle was from Michigan.
Yes.
Her father disappeared, maybe died. And then Michelle has been, but then like in the next sentence, like pretty much says that Michelle has actually been getting money from her father.
Oh, is that what okay, so I thought, because they talk about Michelle sending money to her grandmother as well.
It said Michelle has been getting money from her father, but I don't know whether that's just the grandmother's assumption, if you know what I mean.
Okay, yeah. It could be the money she is sending back to her grandmother, she is assuming is the money that her father has sent her or something like that.
It could be, because as this episode goes on, it sort of is showing us where Michelle's getting this money from, potentially.
Yeah.
So, also, there's a cool picture of Michelle playing the drums.
Yep.
And it zooms in way. I was talking to Konrad just before we started recording. I said, I'm not giving you any points for saying that that's Buck. I'm just not.
Yeah.
It zoomed way in on the face.
Well, so I mean, to give the listeners kind of an insight into how my brain was working here, I was like, okay, how long ago is this happening? If we are to believe this is, you know, the same world, I guess. So my mind at this point was still on, okay, this is Buck before they transitioned to being male. So it must be, this must be a flashback or something like that. And I was thinking, the money that she's sending, that she was sending to her grandmother was potentially from selling drugs with Steve or something like that. But to be honest, I was pretty rapidly disabused of that almost within the next scene. Like, it becomes pretty clear in this episode that the chronology of Michelle's disappearance and what we know about Buck as a character just doesn't line up, which proposes some interesting theory. Well, and to be honest, like, there are other characters we meet in this episode. It's like, okay, well, there's obviously some multiverse stuff going on here, guys, because I was like, okay, this chronology doesn't line up. So I was debating with Anthony before this whether that would even go in the theory matrix, because it's one of those theories where I was like, I did get there before the episode kind of handed it to me, but it was still in the same episode where they were like, yeah, we're in a different reality here, guys.
Okay, yeah, so maybe the listeners could weigh in on that. Should Konrad get a point in the theory matrix for predicting mid-episode that there's potentially like a multiverse thing going on?
Yeah, I feel like, and I feel like personally I'm kind of against it, purely because you did ask me in our last episode whether I thought there was going to be multiple versions of the same people, and true to form, you've asked me that question twice for the 2 seasons series we've done. The first one was for Dark, where you said, do you think they're going to get into like family tree fuckery? And I was like, no, that's not going to happen in this show. and then last episode, I think it was last episode, you asked me, do you think they're going to get into like people meeting like alternate versions of themselves? And once again, I said, I don't think that's going to happen, guys. Yeah. And then within one episode, it's like, well, I'm an idiot.
I was just trying to get a theory on the board either way for them just before we found out. I think sometimes I wear I wear it on the sleeve where I'm pointing you. But the thing is, from your perspective, you have no idea when I'm doing that and when I'm not.
Yeah, so I just think it's an honest question. I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. That sounds ridiculous. And then by the end of this episode, it's like, well, of course it's a multiverse thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. So we find out that she was getting paid through Ethereum.
Yes.
Which is $31,000 were in Michelle's account.
Is that a real thing, by the way? I don't know.
No, sorry, I said Ethereum. My head says Ethereum because there is actually a cryptocurrency called Ethereum, but in the show they're saying Ether.
Yeah, Ether. That's right. Yeah, but I wasn't. I didn't stop to look up whether, I assumed it was a cryptocurrency thing, but
it is a cryptocurrency. I don't know whether they are really meaning it to mean Ethereum, because Ethereum is a real one in real life. But this, I don't really know whether they were aware of that. I'm sure they were, but they just called it Ether anyway.
Ether sounds believable as a cryptocurrency name.
Yeah, it does. Everything's in the ether, if you know what I mean. So basically, the Kareem then goes and checks. He goes to the house that she was staying in. She was staying with a Vietnamese family, and I love that he just kicks the granny out of the room.
Yeah, doesn't want her like earwigging on the conversation, so he's just like, get out. And there's a great little moment, great little granny humor moment when he's kicking her out, and she's walking away and like kind of complaining in that way the grandmas do, and then she starts walking down the stairs and she kind of peeks her head back round just to see if he's still there, because she's clearly thinking about coming and spying on the conversation again. So I was like, I like this granny, she's all right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go on.
No, you go.
I was going to say Kareem comes back in the room and says, was she hustling? Was she selling her body? Trying to just sort of, that's, someone goes missing in a big city. It's sort of the first thing, and all this money was found.
Yeah, all this money, yeah.
Yeah, so he's starting thinking, is that what she was doing? Also, he found out that she's technically homeless at the minute, so therefore he's thinking, could it be possible that that's what was happening?
Yeah, and, which is, I think what her grandma... I think the use of the word invisible is interesting in this, because obviously from our point of view, we know something about Buck's character where the word invisible has deeper implications than perhaps the grandma is intending. So it's a clever use of the word. But for me, I think I took that to mean she's homeless, and potentially the grandma isn't a legal immigrant or something like that. So she's not registered to live in the US, something along those lines.
Yep, exactly. And so grandma gets the text to grandma gets translated then by these Vietnamese people that she was staying with, and it said along the lines of, I want to come home but I can't, maybe I'll make enough money I can get us a house again. So standard stuff.
Pretty standard stuff, yeah. And I think the one thing we missed here, which I thought was interesting, is that you get Kareem on the phone with someone on the train while they're on the way over to this house, and that's kind of where I started to suspect that he might be a former cop, because basically if there's a PI in any kind of movie or television show, they were definitely a cop before and still have connections on the force, and turns out that's probably the case here as well.
Well, yeah, he seems very connected. He knows all the channels to look for stuff and everything like that. So basically, he's then outside. He's going in a shop, but then he notices that walking past is the young boy who is, I would assume, is the child of the Vietnamese couple that was looking after, or Michelle was staying in the house of. And he goes up to him and says, "Hey, I want to ask you a couple of questions. First of all, Thein is his name, but he goes by Donald."
Yep, Donald. Great.
What a name. What a name.
And I thought it was bold of Kareem to bribe him with peanut M&Ms, because, there's a significant risk that you're going to kill a child if they have an allergy with that choice.
Definitely. That's actually funny that you say that, is because my wife's went back to work now in the film industry, and most films, they just say no nuts. Most workplaces, don't they? They say no nuts allowed.
Yeah.
And I always found it funny,
I was going to make the worst joke then. Why am I allowed to work here then?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But I always found it funny. I've talked to people in the past whenever, I was like, oh, you're not allowed nuts here, whatever. There's a pupil with nuts or whatever. Or actually, I don't know, not even in this job, but in general jobs, there's always some people who are absolutely ridiculous. Can't even bring.
It's just is it that ridiculous, guys? Just err on the side of caution so you don't kill anyone by mistake.
Exactly. Have your peanut butter when you get home. Come on.
Yeah, you can wait the 6 hours, guys. It's not going to kill you. It might kill them.
That's one little aspect of sort of going against every decision. I never understood that one. I just never understood that one. Okay, so it talks to Donald. Donald leads him to a house.
Lovely old house.
A lovely old house. I think it's very dark green. If I remember.
It is, it's dark green. And if I know anything about San Francisco, it's that rent is incredibly expensive there. So whoever owns this place is wealthy as fuck. And we don't actually find out who.
Anyone who doesn't listen to our movie podcast, I will just plug here The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Fantastic film. Kind of about the San Francisco property market, kind of. So check it out. It's a great film. So basically, Michelle would sleep in this place. Actually, Donald went down and went through the basement or something. He climbed underneath, came through, opened the door for Kareem. Yeah. Kareem comes in. He goes up, finds where Michelle was sleeping. He sees a load of notes on the roof.
Yeah, crazy stuff. There's also there's a great creepy wide shot of when they first discover where Michelle was sleeping, a sort of front-facing shot of Kareem looking down at it, and you see the character kind of walk in through the door behind him silently and then disappear off to the side. And I love shots like that because they just introduce attention to the scene. It's fuck, there's someone in the room with you. It worked on me. I was very tense in this scene after that. So, there's a lot of stuff going on. Where,
I don't even know how to. Each scene is so big. I don't even know how to. I don't want to give you it all straight away and have you discuss it all. I'll go bit by bit. But so basically, there's a load of stuff on the roof. Anything you noticed about this straight away?
What the drawings in particular?
Yeah,
not really. I was looking at it that looks not normal. To be honest, that looks like not a normal puzzle solving method.
It's not Sudoku, that's for sure.
No, exactly. I mean, you get the reveal that Michelle, who at this point I was starting to say, because I think they said she'd been missing for 2 weeks or something. So I was like, okay, that timing doesn't make sense. So this has to be an alternate version of Buck/Michelle, where they never transitioned or something. It can't be this can't be a flashback to an earlier time in that character's life. Yeah. Even if maybe some of the events line up, I'm not sure. But we find out that Michelle sent got 31,000 off of this game, which isn't named at this point, but we find out later it's Q Symphony. And they're not allowed. They're very guarded. Donald seems to know a bit about it, I think. But they're
I will just say it's very interesting. This is not a political podcast, but there's a Donald in this episode. There's a weird sort of cult thing about Q in this episode.
That's a good point. And Joe Biden is president as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like talk about Simpsons predicting things.
Yeah, X-Files theme music. Like,
Yeah.
It is weird actually. Now you mention that. Yeah, and the game itself looks kind of nuts. It's just, lots of
passageways,
doors or passageways. Yeah. And then we meet this pink-haired chap.
Well, before we get to the pink-haired chap, did you notice whenever Kareem opened the little thing, there was he took the poster off the wall, there was a hole in the wall. Did you catch that part?
I don't think I did notice that, actually.
Or maybe you were taking a note then. So basically what happened was, next to where Michelle slept, on the wall there was like a little poster, and he took the poster off the wall, and there was like a hole in the wall there.
And that's where her phone was.
It was in there. But as he was looking through, there was like a mirror on the other side or something, so he saw his own reflection there. That's just.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that, but I mean, I wonder if that's a reflection that this character has the same kind of gender identity concerns that Buck had as well. Like we've seen Buck very explicitly interacting with a mirror. Yeah. I wonder if that's a callback to that. I'm not sure, but it could be.
Potentially, or maybe when I first saw this, maybe I was thinking as well, like maybe this is like a sign that like he's gonna get lost in it too,
Yeah, could be that as well. Could be much more directly related to Kareem. But I mean, there is this episode has like symbolism coming out the wazoo, quite frankly.
Okay. So basically, the pink-haired gentleman attacks Kareem.
Yeah, I think he bites him.
Yeah, it goes up absolutely nuts. And he says a few things here.
Yeah, he does.
He says, "I solved it myself. My brain can hold all the brains.
Yep.
My thoughts can hold water. I've seen a million versions of myself. These are mine. I did this." And then he jumps out a window.
Yeah. So
perfectly normal behavior.
I don't even really know where to begin with this guy, to be honest. I think if I take kind of like a step back from what literally interpreting what he's actually saying and think about the context in which he is saying it, my read of this character is he has internalized a lot of the puzzle solving mechanics of this game for so long that he's been driven insane by it. I think that's fairly self-evident, but I think there's also, he's seen a million versions of himself. That's like, okay. Like, we've already seen 2 versions of one character in this episode, so, that definitely fits in with where I think they're going with this kind of multiverse theory stuff. I'm not sure about the, my thoughts. My thoughts can part water, is that what he says?
Hold water.
Oh, hold water. Yeah, so that's like telekinesis he's talking about there, which I don't know. I don't know what to read into that. But I mean, it seems like the puzzle solving aspect of Q Symphony has driven this character insane. The grabbing of Michelle's phone and like jumping out the window. I feel like there's got to be something to do with triggering an NDE in there. It's got to be. Like he's trying to jump.
He looked like he did survive at the end when he was going into the ambulance. His eyes were still open.
That's true. But I mean, Prairie survived as well.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying to you. It could be that he knew the fall wouldn't kill him and he was trying to trigger some sort of NDE or something like that.
I feel like that in a show where we've so explicitly talked about NDEs allowing you to slip into this current that transports you between realities, that seems far too convenient to not be at least slightly related to what we've seen previously.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So Kareem sort of says to Donald here, "You don't want to see that boy," and he sends him on his way. And then the cops are there. Yeah. One of the best self owns I've ever heard a policeman say. Why'd they come to you? Well, he says, "Why'd they come to you?" And then so they can pay someone to give a shit. It's like,
yeah. Oh yeah, that is great. Yeah, I will say I did find racist dickhead cop a little on the nose in the way that he's written. It's like, come on, all right. Like talking about like why did they come to you? Like don't they not like do they not? I thought they didn't like blacks or something is what he says, and it's just like come on, dude. All right, that feels like. That feels very clumsily written. It's like, how do we make this character be the biggest piece of shit we possibly can? But this little exchange, particularly with the other cop, who seems much more normal.
Well, later on, whenever that dickhead cop actually talks to the other cop, he's talking. The better cop was talking to Kareem after the dickhead cop went away, and like he says, like, you know, he doesn't like you for this or whatever, and Kareem goes, "Is that really the reason?" It's like, why are they acting like all subtle now? He just literally said that
the guy who, I mean, you know, say what you will about his politics and his social beliefs, but at least he's honest about them. Like, you don't have to guess with that guy. Like, it's very clear that he's a racist.
Everyone knows, you know.
Yeah, he's not being subtle about it, guys. But so I mean, we get pretty much. I read this as confirmation that Kareem used to be a cop, given he has this relationship with this police officer, and he's kind of blasé about coming in to give a statement as well. Like, he's sort of like, yeah, whatever, I'll come in. Like, at some point, like, he's not. He's either been working with the police for a long time, or he was a policeman, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Kareem goes and sort of goes to like a rave place. I don't know what's going on here. Like,
I'm just going to say in the build up to this, right? I did have the subtitles on for this episode. I don't normally have subtitles on, but my partner watches stuff with subtitles, and they were left on without me noticing. The subtitle for the music in this rave place said heavy metal music playing, and I will say right now that this is clearly not heavy metal. This is like EDM that's playing here. So I sure hope somebody got fired for that blunder, because that's.
I don't know, Konrad. Maybe because this is like an alternate reality. Maybe this is heavy metal in that.
That is true. Maybe maybe heavy metal in this reality is like pop music in ours.
I think that's probably right. So basically, he goes off. This part here. Maybe I missed a line. Which there's a lot of stuff in here that if you miss a line, you'll not know what's going on. But I kind of thought it was that this is he went to a place where he knew he could get some good info. That's what I. Sort of
he went to where the kids hang out.
Yeah,
like I think is like he basically, like, him wandering around, shouting, "Yo, I'm looking for gamers," made me feel very spoken to, because as a man in his mid-30s now, I was like, I know this feeling all too well, Kareem. just wandering around groups of like 18-year-old children being like, "Gamer friends, someone come and talk to me." But yeah, I don't know. This is. I didn't think too hard about how he knows about this place. I just like the fact that there's like this EDM dance club that he knows and goes to when he wants to talk to like 18-year-olds about games.
Okay. He seems very competent anyway. So him doing a move, going and doing a move like this to try and move forward in the case, it's not really. It didn't really strike it too. Yeah, it just works. So he finds out about Q Symphony. They call them Q Kids. And you need to see Big Blue in Oakland.
Q Kids is like the kind of junior scouts of the QAnon following. It's much more to do with, you know, like arts and crafts and outdoors activities before they get you into the full-on conspiracy theory stuff later.
Yeah, exactly. I love when he shows up. He goes to Oakland. He shows up at the house. He walks in. They go, "You the plumber?" He's like, "No, I'm a cop." And then the guy's like, "No, you're not."
Yeah. Actually, I just wanted to say something about that previous scene. You know, where he meets the guy who looks like he's a weightlifter, and then he says, "Oh, I'm deaf," and they have to go into like a cubicle to talk.
And then they talk.
Yeah, like
I think he's making a joke that he's deaf because of the music, I think.
Oh, well, that wasn't actually. I didn't even stop to think about that, actually, to be honest. That's a good point. But no, the thing I was wondering was, like, I had subtitles on, so I understood exactly what they said. How on earth are you supposed to pass that dialogue if you don't have subtitles on?
I don't think you're supposed to. It's interesting, isn't it? Like, yeah, I couldn't hear a word they were saying. I was just reading it. So...
It's just odd to me, because I was like, well, you've depicted this scene of them talking, and you've subtitled it so that we can see what they're saying. But if I was just watching this, you know, without the subtitles on, I would have no idea what this conversation was about. Yeah, it's just odd to me.
Yeah. So exactly. So he goes into a room. It's a bit like in the episode of the Office, whenever Tim and Dawn are in a room and like they take their microphones off and they get filmed through the window.
Yeah, exactly.
So except there's no subtitles in that part. All right, so he meets Zendaya.
He does, yeah. Zendaya, Zoomers rise up.
Fowler. The character's name is Fowler.
Okay, Fowler. I don't know. Do we actually get introduced to her by name in this episode? I didn't catch that. If we did,
I watched it with subtitles too.
Yeah. There's also, just to say as well, there's a very interesting kind of like satellite shot to set up this scene.
Yeah.
Which, given, and it returns to that a few times, almost as if there's like an international network of satellites that are doing some funny business. It reminded me of like 24 as well.
Yeah, it was a little 24.
You expect to see like the little, the little like location time come along the bottom of the screen. Like,
I want to see like a split screen at some point. In 24 where it's like different angles or different locations. Alicia
Cuthbert and the Kingsley Ben-Adir like up to different things at different times.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Oh, that would be great. It's completely different to the style of the last season. Like, can you imagine last season, like, if they just randomly went out to the world and zoomed into the house they were all meeting in? Yeah, that would have felt very out of place.
I think it is a really notable change, both kind of like tonally and presentationally. Like the last season was kind of like, it had a lot of like soft edges. Like, it felt very much like it was just Prairie Story, and it was very kind of, I don't even really know what I'm trying to say here, but there's just something about the increase in presence of technology in this episode which is really striking and feels like it's immediately set this apart from the last season in a way that I'm very much into.
Yeah, it does feel very different. Okay, so we have Fowler takes Kareem. First of all, actually, Fowler was sitting there working on like a model.
Yes.
Did you have any thoughts about this model?
I mean, it looked a bit like a strand of DNA, I thought. It's kind of like a spiral staircase almost that it looks like. I'm not sure about the model itself, but I mean, she's talking about how, every person who's contributing to solving these puzzles is building a solution to a bigger puzzle. And she mentions like the designer of this Q Symphony stuff, which I've got some thoughts about the designer. We'll get into that a bit later when Pierre Ruskin starts showing up. But I have no idea where this is going, because it's immediately like, okay, in the last season we were dealing with NDEs. They trigger your ability to kind of experience stuff outside of the material plane. I'm all on board with that. And then suddenly in this episode we've got into like almost like Matrix architect style stuff with like self-learning algorithms, and I'm just what is happening, Britt Marling? What's happening in this episode? Like,
yeah.
I don't understand.
Get her on to chat about it.
Yeah, like, explain to me how you went from the last episode of last season to this, because I'm very much into it, but I haven't got a fucking clue what's happening.
Yeah. It's such a big difference. Like, there's 3 years between the seasons. Like,
and I think that's one of that is a good point, actually. I wonder if that had partially played into it, where they were like, you know what, like, it's been so long that continuity of tone isn't something we really need to worry about too much here. But it's one of the reasons why I also think that they are using a PI and then using a PI as your main character obviously has noir implications, and one of the big sort of staples of noir as a genre is the protagonist doesn't really know what's going on. They're kind of being led along through this series of mysteries, and we're finding them out as they find it out.
Yep.
And I feel like that is kind of what we're getting here. Like, Kareem Washington is very much the audience analog, where it's like, I haven't got a fucking clue what's happening. Like, all right, I'm just here looking for gamers, and then suddenly there's Zendaya talking about designers and puzzles that pay like millions of dollars just for answering it in cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, it's a big change. It's a big change. So Fowler takes Kareem to the part of the game that goes IRL. So basically, Fowler actually cheated for Kareem, because Fowler actually did all the steps of the game for him before. It's kind of like when your big brother does all the levels of Mario to get you to the one where you want to turn into a flying raccoon or whatever you do.
Yeah, I brought a friend when I was in year 7, so I was 11. I brought a year 11 friend that I had made when I was doing a play together with him round to my house to do all the hard bits of Ocarina of Time. And that's very much what this was like.
Yeah. I don't actually remember ever beating Ocarina of Time myself. I think my brother did all the temples, and I just was running around in Hyrule Fields, like just running around.
I mean, that's the good bit. That's the bit you want to do. You don't want to do the bloody water temple. That stuff was a nightmare. Just
continually turning into an adult and a child playing the ocarina. That was the fun part.
Yeah. Play some ocarina. That's all I want.
That's the Epona's song. Okay, so we've got some. Let me see here. So how are we gonna get through this scene? Which Fowler takes him to the stairs.
Yes.
He's got the clue is above the sea, below the stars. He's looking through the thing. There's a bit of augmented reality going on.
Yeah, I love the augmented reality puzzle stuff. That's so cool.
Yeah, he sees a birds flying, and he's like, above the sea, below the stars, birds. Looks around at Fowler, and Fowler's just like, he puts it in.
I love how confident Kingsley Ben-Adir looks every single time he comes up with the wrong answer. It's just like, obviously it's birds, and then it's just like, eh.
Yeah, but I just love the performance of Zendaya as well. How she's so into him getting it wrong. Like she's so into his confidence. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
as well?
Yeah. She very much enjoys taking him down a peg or two, I think, in this scene.
Yeah. So eventually he finds out. It pans up to reveal a beautiful view.
Yes.
Where they are on the stairs, and eventually it's actually a BA flight 411.
Yeah. Now I didn't look up if there was anything to do with this flight of significance, because I was like, if I start looking this up, I'm running the risk of seeing something that spoils me on something, because if I type in like BA 411 and there's something crazy that went on with it, then I'll find that out pretty immediately, probably because of OA related theorizing. But I do wonder what the significance of this flight is. Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest, but it's something.
Okay. Well, 2016, it could have been different, but I literally just looked it up. Apparently, it's a flight from Ibiza to London.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Well, that's weird.
Yeah. I also looked it up, and there's a Reddit post someone put, which is, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's BA 411.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe there's just not. Maybe this is like one of those like famous red herrings I've heard about, where Brit Marlin's just like, I don't know. It's a British Airways flight number. Who cares?
So actually, I didn't even say that, but I was thinking, is there any significance to like the 7 hours 46 minutes later? You know what I mean?
Well, I took that to be a time difference.
No, yeah, of course, but I just mean like the time they chose.
Oh, the actual time they chose. Oh, well, I mean, maybe that is literally the exact time difference between. I can't remember where the first season actually takes place. It's on the East Coast somewhere, I think.
Michigan.
Oh, it's Michigan. That's right. Yeah.
I think 7 hours is too much of a difference. I think.
Yeah,
also, if it was a time difference, it wouldn't be later. Like it wouldn't. It would just be the same time.
Yeah. Well, it depends on your perspective. That's why that was my read of it. Was like, okay, it's not actually 7 hours later, because it is. It's 7 hours later from where we were in the last season, but it's like everyone waking up in San Francisco.
I think 7 hours is too much of a difference from Michigan to.
I don't know. Eastern Standard to what is it? Eastern Standard to Pacific.
I don't know what Michigan is, but I know that in a certain time of year, the difference between us and New York is only 5 hours. So
yeah, but America's pretty big. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, you're right. It's about 3 hours. So I don't know then. I don't know. Maybe I was reading too much into that, and it was literally just like, this is 7 hours from now.
Yeah. Perhaps. Like, I did go the whole way across America, but I didn't go all in one go, so I couldn't remember what the whole difference is the whole way across. But yeah, I knew it wasn't 7 hours. There's
some lines in this that I want to talk about. Like,
okay.
So there's like when he does get it right, so he gets his flight number, and then Zendaya starts talking to him about this is like basically the significance of solving a puzzle and how it's like a conversation between a puzzle maker and a player, and it's, in her words, it's to help you escape the limits of your own thinking. To which Kareem Washington responds, "Sounds like God," which is interesting, like an interesting development in that dialogue is all I'll say for now. And then she says a really weird line, which I mean the OA does this fairly often, where it kind of comes out with these bits of dialogue that I don't dislike, but they completely catch me off guard because they're just weird. And there's one for Zendaya's character here where she says, "I want you to fall in love," which I don't know what that means. I don't know what to read and make of that at all.
Well, yeah, exactly. Zendaya's kind of fulfilling the Matrix Oracle role here.
Yes, yeah. She's telling him to eat cookies and not worry about breaking vases, and baking noodles and all sorts of things here.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's actually doing very well to take this all in stride, because if I were in that situation, I'd just be like, I understand what's happening here.
I was having to rewind it all the time, whereas he was like he didn't have to pause the world at all. He knew what was going on the whole time.
And he was solving a puzzle at the same time. So Kareem Washington's smarter than me. I'll say that much for him.
Yeah, he's very, very smart, this boy. So he gets a new clue: three wise man.
Yeah. Which I'm not smart enough to even start unpacking either. Like, I'm. This one's in your, like, the ball's in your court for this one, Kareem.
Yeah, you handle this one, Kareem.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's the sort of end of Kareem Washington's introduction.
Yep.
We now move into Nina.
It's a name we've heard before.
It is a name we've heard before. So you hear, well, first of all, the fella who we will come to know as Pierre Ruskin is talking on the phone, and he mentions Nina. And Nina is saying, "You betrayed me." She's seen things that she can't unsee. How many were in the house, and what did you do to them? I'm not your partner anymore. I don't want you anywhere near the house. And she takes off what seems to be a wedding ring.
Yes. So there's a lot here. So I think the house that they're talking about and how many are in it, coupled with what we see later in this episode when we go back to Kareem Washington, makes me think that there's some kind of, I'm not going to call it human trafficking, but something which is close to human trafficking going on with Pierre Ruskin, where he's basically bringing in what looks to be fairly young people to do whatever kind of dream experiment they're doing at the I can't actually remember the name of the place, the Curie cane sugar plant thing that Kareem Washington breaks into later. So I'm assuming that this has something to do with that. Like, he has people, either being prepped to go there, or he is selecting people out of there to do more. I suppose if I was thinking about it logically, he's probably, if he's letting people into a house that he shares with his partner, it's unlikely that it's people he doesn't know. He's probably pulling people out of that experiment to do more experiments on them in a more controlled environment at home. So that's kind of my read of that. I'm not sure what the betrayal is at this point, but my read of their relationship is that it is a sham, that she's not actually married to him, and that the fact she so willingly takes the wedding ring off kind of seems to suggest something like that to me. Mm-hmm. What else was there here? Yeah, I think she was helping him to some extent, perhaps unknowingly, with work similar to that which Hap was doing in the first season. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as to what that work looks like or what her role in it was, I'm really not sure at the moment. But it is like, as soon as I saw Nina in this scene, I was heard Brit Marling's voice speaking in a Russian accent, I was a bit like, ah, shit, here we go.
yeah, here we go.
We've been down this road before. Here comes Alt Prairie, ready to ruin all the family trees.
Yeah, although we do come to find out very soon that it isn't Prairie. But before we get there, on a boat.
Yes.
Not much to say about that. on a boat, she holds up. She's got a key ring that's an eye. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was a bit like, that seems like something that's probably important. I don't understand what the significance of it is, to be honest. Like,
Prairie and the other one lost her sight, whereas in this world she has 3 eyes, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so then Nina collapses, almost as if, knowing what happens in a few minutes, almost as if she can feel the bullet in Prairie's chest.
Yeah, well, I think that's what, like, so this is kind of one of the theories I came out of this this episode with. I think they are literally swapping places, so I think that's why she can feel it. It's because she is being pulled into Prairie's body as Prairie is pulled into hers. So she's already, like, as part of that process, she's starting to experience that pain. Because, I mean, Nina must go somewhere, presumably. She can't just disappear because Prairie has jumped into her consciousness. So I wonder if there is going to be a fish out of water comedy with Nina, like, waking up in assuming she survives, because Prairie did literally get shot in the middle of the chest, which is in the rankings of bad places to get shot, it's right up there, right in the middle of the chest. There's a lot of important things there.
Yep, exactly. So basically, Nina starts to have a fit of some sort. you start to hear the sound of the doctors in the ambulance with Prairie saying, "Prairie, can you hear me? Hold on, you're going to be okay," or whatever. Steve's running after it, and then there's an absolutely fantastic transition shot.
Yeah.
From Prairie's universe into this new universe as Nina, and they're both in the ambulance, so sort of it's transferred in, and I just love the way that it did a transition shot there. It was so cool.
Yeah.
So then Prairie immediately starts asking, "Where is this?" And you notice that she's got an American accent now.
Yes.
So and then she said, so one of the paramedics actually says she's been shot in the heart. So it shows you that. So there, what do you think about the whole transition of moving from one to the other?
Yeah, I think that was about as well done as it could have possibly been. I wasn't really sure what it would look like, but I really liked how it was presented. I think it was very striking and really well done. I'll be interested to see whether we see it from Nina's perspective as well at some point, or whether, because we kind of just got it from Prairie's, her being in the ambulance going through the tunnel. So yeah, I'll be interested to see where, like, if we see any more of that. But it certainly was striking to look at.
Okay, awesome. All right, so she wakes up at the hospital, very similar to the way that she did in the first season.
Yeah.
And the first thing is Barack Obama isn't the president.
No, that's great. Old
Joey
Joe
Biden,
Sleepy Joe.
Joseph Robinette Biden
Is that his middle name?
Robinette, yeah.
Robinette. That's not a real name.
Well, it is a real name. Strange name, yes. Real name, definitely. Very strange. So Prairie says, "My name is Prairie Johnson." That says here, "You're Nina Azarova." Asks to see a mirror. She says, "It's me, but it's not me."
Yeah.
Then she just, like, in front of the nurse was like, I did it. I jumped.
Yeah.
And then straight away, "Is there a man here called Homer?" Is there a Homer in this universe?
Yeah. Bring me the Homers. She also, interestingly, has a kind of set of bruises on her left arm, which look a little bit, I might be barking up the wrong tree here, but to me they look a little bit like the scarification marks her father had on his face when she saw him in Katoon's worlds, like the little kind of bumps that he had on his face. The
bumps to me looked very like the people in the comments that back me up. It just literally looked like Braille. This one didn't look too much like Braille to me.
They were slightly different. That, I mean, I could be completely wrong, but that's what that kind of purely because it's a pattern. That's what it kind of put me in mind.
It was a good pattern. I was wondering, like, that pattern. It's interesting to see. I'd like to. Obviously, I know the answer, and I just want to tell you now. I can't overhype. I can't overhype the answer more. I can't. It is mind blowing.
Do you want to know what my guess for it is at the moment?
Okay. Just, it's not a theory; it's a guess. Okay.
This is. I've got a couple of big swings coming out of this episode in terms of theories that aren't really theories, because there's no way I could know either way. So I think this is binary on her arm, and I think there's going to be. I think there's going to be some crazy fucking AI simulation stuff going on here. That's my just out of complete left field. I've got no reason to believe this, but I think she's got, and I think maybe that's like the movement markings are going to play into this as well. But I've got nothing to back this up. I was just like, I saw it, and it's because it's like just a series of dots. Binary it's literally binary. It's one of two things. So. Yeah, that was my guess for it.
Right, okay. I would say I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm just going to say, in the first season, Prairie had scarification on her back, right? So it's a similar idea in this season.
Yeah.
We've got markings on the skin. We don't know what they are. In the first season, you could maybe say that the reveal of what the markings were was a little bit underwhelming, because even though it played a really big part in the storyline, and I thought it made a lot of sense, and I did enjoy it. It wasn't quite the angel wings that.
Yeah, it's not like a big thing. It's just like, they're marking the movements on themselves so they don't forget them or whatever. Which
exactly, which works perfectly, and it's great. It's just not like quite an angel wing, which you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But this time, I have to say to you, go mental, predict what you want for this. You are gonna love it. You are gonna love it. Yeah.
I mean, I'd like it's. Yeah, there's a lot happening in this episode, and it's set me up for they basically, what Britt Marling has done for this season is kind of tilled the earth of the OH. Been like, plant away, go absolutely nuts. That's fertile ground. But, like, so that's what I'm going to go for here, and we get a late title card after this scene as well.
38 minutes in. So
love a late title
scene.
card. Well,
yeah.
Was it? I feel like the first season it was basically the end of the episode though, right? Whereas this one's like smack bang in the middle.
It was 50 minutes in. It was when she started telling her story.
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas this one was the transition. After her first, like, she first becomes Nina, then we get the title card.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and it comes up. It doesn't say the OA like most TV shows do. It actually says the OA Part 2. Like, this is a sequel.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's a very cinematic quality to the way they do their title cards, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, and then so they after the title sequence they go in. The title sequence itself actually is like around Earth and very like
that's where we see like the
images.
Satellite footage again. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So basketball. Kareem's playing a bit of basketball.
Yep.
He shows. He tells the whole story to his mates of. Who I thought were his mates, and then he doesn't actually know the name of them all. So he literally just went down to these people playing basketball and was like, "Hey, can you help me solve this missing person thing?"
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, so that he goes down and they're saying it seems like it might be like a recruitment tool for a tech company. Maybe it's not a recruit. This is really interesting actually. The female character who we don't know the name of. So let's call her the baller. So the baller.
The baller.
The baller, right? The baller is mentions it could be crowdsourcing.
Yes.
Which was really interesting to me. I love that. It was very quick, snappy dialogue, but I love the idea when Kareem said, "What you mean, like erasing the line between work and play, like hiding your sweatshop in the cloud?" I thought that was really effective bit of dialogue.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting bit of dialogue because I think it's tapping into something which is very realistic. You know, this kind of cult around big tech companies like Google making their offices like absolutely amazing, so that you never feel the need to leave, and therefore you basically work there 24/7, and obviously working from home for a lot of people in the last year has basically kind of broken down these barriers between home and work. So I think it's definitely tapping into something that's real, and like crowdsourcing children or people who can't get jobs in the industry to basically do your work for you it's
like the company Duolingo.
Yeah,
where they translate the web through people learning languages, which obviously it's obviously a symbiotic relationship there, but it is basically crowdsourcing their labor.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's kind of like machine learning and learning algorithms, which I do wonder if they're going to get into this here. But I mean, there is, to be honest, there was at the end. Although I think I agree with everything that the baller lady said, there is still this niggling thought in the back of my mind that when in something that's kind of leaning into noirish kind of plot structures, when an unnamed character doesn't reveal their identity but turns up and reveals what seems like plot crucial information to the protagonist by naming Pierre Ruskin and saying, "Oh, I was one of these brilliant young people who Pierre Ruskin utilized to crowdsource." I can't actually remember what it was that she developed. It was some kind of
low cost solar panel.
That's it. Yeah. But when that happens, you always have to be a bit like, what's this character's motivations? Because this information feels very convenient to be given to just turn up in Kareem Washington's hands right now.
I just love the idea of this character like really, really wanting to tell someone that they created a low-cost solar panel. And, like...
Yeah, it's their chance to shine. It's like, finally, after all these years.
Yeah. So basically, we find out that Pierre Ruskin is actually was known as like the holy prophet of the valley, and was actually the angel investor of Uber, Lyft, and a lot of blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Now, the way it sort of puts it across is that he knows what's going to happen or what's going to be popular or what is necessary for the market before he should.
Yeah, so I feel like it's kind of like rolling up like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and all these kind of tech billionaires
with Biff Tannen.
Yeah, exactly. With Biff Tannen and his software almanac.
Like we're in the old. It's really weird, isn't it, that we're in the alternate world now, and now we have a character who's able to predict the future. Like, it's just like the alternate world in Back to the Future.
Someone's going to bring a hoverboard. I mean, we were 90% of the way there with the longboarding in the beginning. All we need is a
I didn't
hoverboard.
see any wheels.
But I mean, this was the scene where I fully was like, okay, yeah, we're definitely in an alternate world here, so I really need to learn to stop making predictions about, or stop. I need to learn to stop definitively saying they're not going to do alternate world stuff.
I just love the idea that no matter what the next show we do is, like, you first thing you predict is, I predict there's an alternate world.
Yeah, if it's Westworld, I'll be like, James, there's 30 James Marstons in Westworld, all right, and they're all doing different things at different times. You're not catching me out again. Fuck you. So Pierre Ruskin. I'll reveal this theory now because I don't think there's going to be like necessarily a natural place to put this in.
Okay.
He's immediately set up as a very convenient antagonist. So it's like, okay, you've got this mysterious game that no one seems to know the designer of, but it's sending kids mad, it's paying them lots of money, and then out of nowhere Kareem Washington is told by someone who he doesn't know the name or motivations of that, oh, this sounds like the kind of thing Pierre Ruskin would do. And then we meet Pierre Ruskin and he's engaging in shady dealings with Nina, and he seems, very controlling, very much like a kind of dickhead billionaire. He feels like a very convenient bad guy, which makes me think that there's one or two things going on with him. Either he's not the genius that he is believed to be, and there's someone else who's kind of doing it for him or pulling his strings. Okay, no, I'm going to rephrase that. I think that is true. I also think we're never going to meet the person who designed Q Symphony. That's like one of my big swings for this season. I'm just like, there's no way that Pierre Ruskin designed this game. Not in a million years are you setting up this like really big mystery of like, who is the designer of this game? And then it's like, oh, it's Pierre Ruskin in the same episode. I don't believe it.
Okay, so you don't think we're going to find out? That is a big swing. So, so are you saying that we're not going to find out in this series, but we might have if the show continued, or just it's something that we'll not find out?
I mean, maybe they would have got to it eventually. I'm sure. That feels like the kind of thing that they probably would have wanted to answer definitively. But I don't think we'll find out in this season. So I think we'll be left to kind of guess who, or indeed what it might be.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're back to Nina or Prairie or the OA. The names are growing, and she asked, sort of, I don't know if it's like a therapist. I don't know what this woman is. I think she's like.
I think she's a cop, right? Because she drops her off in a police car.
Yeah, she might be a cop, and that's why she's sort of so open with her and like sort of might be. And basically, Perry is asked to try and find Homer Roberts, and there's a psychiatrist in the Bay Area, and there's a man in his 60s. Prairie obviously is right straight away like, oh, okay, it's none of those. Silly girl. But what do you like when they said this, psychiatrist in the Bay Area, man in his 60s? Were you like Prairie at this stage? Were you just like, oh, okay, well then there's no Homer?
No, I mean I knew the Homer was 100% turning up in this episode. It just wasn't going to be her Homer, which there's an interesting. It's hard to kind of figure out exactly how the traveling or the jumping, as she calls it, works at this point, because obviously she swapped places with Nina when she did it, which I guess implies that the same can be true for Homer and, well, we'll get there when we get there. Rachel and Scott, I think something happened there. We'll get into that when we get there, because I think that they seem to recognize Prairie.
Well, Renata was there too.
Renata was also there as well. Yeah. I don't remember if I noticed Renata's reaction in that scene.
Well, I think she was right up at the window, like
like the others,
in the same way as Scott. Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was Renata and Scott then, and I just thought it was Rachel.
It did show Rachel too, but she was sort of the first in the corridor, and she was sitting. She did look at Prairie, but she was sitting on a chair within the cell, I suppose.
Okay, so I wonder if I think the Homer stuff is going to get into like a Homer is missing situation where like he has jumped and swapped with another one of his alternate selves, but it's not the one in this reality. Maybe that's kind of where I was getting to with this. But I was pretty confident he was showing up, but it wasn't going to be her Homer, so to speak.
Okay, awesome. So. A development comes through that they want to keep Nina. Actually, we didn't mention this. Actually, Nancy doesn't know her. So
Yes.
it's sort of just. I think we all sort of knew when she had a Russian accent that she wasn't going to have been adopted into America.
Yeah.
But it sort of just implies that they did adopt the boy. Obviously, whenever she starts saying, "Listen, I know you went to a whorehouse and took a baby," Ned's like, "Gotta get off the call."
Yeah, gotta go, and then yeah, that's great. It's a nice little scene that between them, just to kind of, show us another reality for Nancy, and it seems telling that Abel's not there with her, so I guess maybe Abel's not alive in this one for that Nancy. I don't know how important Nancy and Abel are going to be for this timeline. It seems like that's them done basically in this reality. But yeah, I enjoyed seeing her, because I don't know how much we're going to see of them this season.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. So she decides to go to voluntarily go to a private clinic on Treasure Island because someone's pulled some strings. For her, because there's not usually an opening at this facility, but there is now.
Yeah.
Which is very good news for Nina.
Yeah, I'm sure she's thrilled by the end of this episode.
Yeah. So she goes voluntarily to this place, but first they stop by her apartment.
Yes.
First of all, she didn't know how to use the key, which was pretty funny, and then the doorman does it for her. She's like, oh my god, look at this place. Like, after I finish the 14-day hold in the facility, can I come here and sleep here? And they're like,
yeah,
this is your house. Like,
I love that she's like not considering who. I suppose she doesn't know what's happened to Nina at this point, but I do like that there's like no consideration for the fact that she's just displaced someone who did live here. Just like, oh, they're all right. They got shot. They're getting shot in the heart. They can, they've got their own bigger fish to fry.
Not once in her mind is she thinking about this person's body that she's
poor
inside.
Woman. Yeah. But yeah, I think this is a really good scene actually, because it kind of gives you a chance to breathe. Because this episode has been like non-stop information and exposition for the best part of an hour at this point. And I found like in this scene, it's a chance for both us and the character of Prairie to be like, whew, okay, right, gather your things, let's get ready for the end of the episode, but just take a moment, you know, find your sweatpants if you indeed own them, which as it turns out Nina did not own sweatpants. She just owned a bunch of sexy underwear.
Lots of lingerie.
Lots of lingerie, yeah, and we see the what looks like the movement scarification on the button to whatever is in that room. That was my kind of read of those
Actually,
symbols.
it has a similar sort of look to it.
Yeah, it's like a lot of like kind of chevron and arrowy looking things, which seems to be similar to how they market
I think I would agree with that actually. But basically, it's funny as well what they do here, like the decision they made on the show. They made the decision like, right, okay, we'll spend a bit of time here now that we've moved into a different universe. Now that we've got Nina, who's Prairie now we've got this sort of up. Let's just take a minute and just like list through the things that happen in this universe. Even though everyone could just come to the conclusion themselves, let's list through it. Okay, so she didn't get on the bus that day, or she didn't die, she didn't have an NDE. Her four friends still died on the bus. She didn't go blind because we see her playing archery. Is that the right word? Playing archery?
Doing archery, I guess. Yeah.
Shooting an arch. I don't know.
Also, it's an assumption that you can't do archery when you're blind.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Like, we don't know what she's shooting at or if she hit it.
Yeah, exactly. It could just be like this, Russian custom just to pose with a bow and arrow at a certain age.
But I guess she never met Katoon either. So that was the big thing for me. Is like, well, she never had an NDE, never went blind. I guess never met Katoon.
She might just be like a normal woman in this. Not the Prairie's not normal. You know what I mean? Well, I think we could all say Prairie's not normal. That's
I think
sure.
we're within our rights to say that what she has experienced is abnormal.
Yeah. So it's funny how it was such a big like focus and a big deal, like all this lingerie. It just seems like Nina's possibly a character that doesn't have any downtime, doesn't have any relaxation time.
I was more impressed by how neatly it was folded away, to be honest, because my underwear drawer does not look like that.
It's literally just throw it in.
Just a crumpled ball of pants.
Yeah, exactly. You go by color.
Yeah.
Right. So we get Kareem is tailing Pierre Ruskin. That obviously comes back a little bit later on. Actually, no. We'll just say now because we could just skip over that. They arrive at Treasure Island. Prairie does, but we don't have to worry about that right now. We'll talk about that in a minute.
I mean, the one thing I'll say at the beginning is that the cop who has seemed kind of like a sensitive soul seems to take a bit of a character turn here. Like, as she's kind of led in by men in white coats, it's a bit like, I think you've been tricked into something here, Prairie, and the cops who've taken you here seems to be in on it to me. So we'll see.
It's almost like as well, like the cop was just the whole time like being like, I'll be nice to you, don't go crazy, you know.
Just to get her here so they could institutionalize her, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So Ruskin goes into Curie, as we mentioned before. Now, the logo, Kareem remembers the logo was actually on Michelle's roof that she was writing on. Kareem does something really smart here. He actually crashes into the cleaner's van.
Yeah, this is genius.
Starts speaking Arabic to them. And then wants to replace them as a cleaner, because obviously on the security cameras, it makes complete sense why he would be talking to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Keeps him undercover. So I thought that was pretty cool, a little way to do it.
I wonder if him speaking Arabic is important as well. I mean, you know, obviously there are Arabic-speaking people in San Francisco. It might just be a coincidence.
Well,
but
his name's Kareem. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, it just seems significant to me that he is the second Arabic-speaking character we have met in this show, and the first one was like an kind of extra planar being. So, like...
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. There's definitely maybe something in that. But I think as well, his name is Kareem.
Yeah,
it's very clear. You know,
people speak Arabic as well. It's not implausible, but he could just be of Arabic descent.
Obviously, the wider view of the show, it's cool that he's speaking Arabic. There's sort of symbolism there, but in the character itself, it's like his name's Kareem. I'm sure he has some Arabic background within himself and his family, so it sort of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so he stumbles into a room. When he's a cleaner, he stumbles into a room where they're listening to... I'm going to let you tell us what they're listening to.
It sounds like a lot of people talking about their dreams to me. That's what it seems like to me. I think it's... On its own, that wouldn't seem too... that wouldn't seem too suspicious, I guess. But the fact that this building literally looks like a supervillain's lair in Batman, like it's like an abandoned ironworks called C&H Cane Sugar, where there is no sugar work going on anywhere here. It's just a bunch of like neon red lights and black rooms with people listening to people dreaming and recording their thoughts. Is like, okay, this is literally like something out of Arkham Asylum. This is not a good place that you've come to here. But yeah,
it does actually have the air of like something that could turn into a superhero show. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Like it looks like someone's going to get pushed into like a vat of stuff and come out as the Joker in this building. But yeah, so I think they were talking about like dreams and describing their dream sequences, and the reason so to go back to what I said previously about Nina having the kind of marks on her arm that I thought was like, oh, maybe that was like binary or something, is that a little bit later, once he kind of diehards his way through the vents to see what's going on, you've got this like big circular room full of people in beds recording stuff into microphones.
Looked like an eye to me, the layout.
It did look like an eye. That's true. That's a good point. I think there's definitely some symbolism in that compared to the keyring that Nina had. Yeah. But I also think that central kind of plinth looked like some kind of like learning computer or something to me, which is why I keep going back to this idea of like computer programs and it being there's some AI fuckery going on here. I'm almost certain of it.
Well, there was like the program that they were looking at in that little room where it was sort of connecting all the words together.
And, it was doing like a word cloud. Yeah,
word cloud. So maybe that's just where all the recordings are going in and getting translated into text, and then or maybe it's proper machine learning AI going on as well.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on that. What's going on in that big factory?
Yes.
So Prairie is now in the private clinic, and she's drawing on the wall, trying to get her head around what's happening here. So she sort of splits off into Nina and into her. So she recognizes that her and Nina have a shared past.
Yeah.
And she also writes NDE with a big rectangle, almost implying that she thinks, or this is my own analysis, but it's implying to me that she thinks that the splits in the timelines happen when people have near-death experiences.
Yeah, I think that's my read of it. I don't know if I agree with her analysis necessarily, just because we know that Nina didn't get on the bus, so
Yeah.
I mean, I guess she didn't have the NDE because she didn't get on the bus. But to me, the decision to not get on the bus is the thing that splits the timeline there.
Surely, if you were to think that feeling was correct, you'd be like, well, in one of the places, Prey would come back, and the other place she would stay with Katoon. That would be like the split.
Yeah.
Or maybe she's just saying, well, I had an NDE. I'll just keep that there. Just in case I forget.
Just keep that up there, just to make sure you don't forget. But
then we get the scene from the end of the first season.
Yes, we do. Like it's we finally get her waking up, or not waking up.
And I will
like,
say that I sort of accidentally. Well, I didn't spoil anything for you, but in the chat we were having, when I said there's like it could be two things, it could be this or this, and one of the things I said it could be a mental institution. It's funny actually because in that moment, as soon as I said it, I was like, "Hang on, it is." What did I just do? I just literally told you what it was, but I didn't even realize before I said that it is. I remember it was what it was, but it wasn't even in the same ballpark as me because I was talking about when I said mental institution, I meant mental institution within her own world.
Yeah.
And what I meant was that she was in there because she was mental and nothing was real. So now that we know she did travel. But she's in a mental institution. She's in it for a whole different reason. So that's just to explain why I said that. No one was accusing me of spoiling things for you, but I just have to say that myself.
I mean, it was a pretty even from the fairly tight shot we got of her at the end of the last season. Mm-hmm. It looks like a very clinical setting now. So it always to me looked like it was going to be a hospital or some kind of health related institution.
Yep. Okay. So you said in the last episode that you didn't think the person she was looking at was going to be Homer.
No, that's true.
Technically, you're correct, I suppose.
No, I'm not going to give myself that. I'm not giving it is Homer. It's just not her. It's not her Homer.
Yeah, and I like the way when she said Homer, he looked freaked out and he looked at his badge and was like, "Oh, okay, thank God." Thank God there's an explanation as to why she knows my name, because that was about to get weird.
Yeah. Glad everything's back to normal now. And then he takes her off to
past Rachel, Renata, Scott. They're all looking at her.
I'm fairly certain that Rachel, Renata, and Scott are her Rachel, Renata, and Scott, based on how they are reacting to her as she walks past them. Homer clearly isn't. And he takes her to meet another familiar face.
Yep, another familiar face, Mr. Dr. Hunter Percy. And he's apparently like a very well-renowned scientist here. And
what was HAP short for? I can't remember if we actually got
Hunter
his full name.
Aloysius Percy.
Oh, okay. So he was Hunter Percy in the regular world as well. I couldn't remember his full name, so I was like, has he made up a name for himself?
Yeah. So he's here. Now it's interesting to me because the show has done. It's a trope, right? Now, it's interesting that are they actually making a comment on the trope and reinventing the trope? They are reinventing the trope, I'll say that. But they are also partaking in the trope of first season being an escape season, and then in the second season, they're just thrown right back in. You know?
Yeah. Put them you change the place, but you keep the situation the same. Job done. Yes. And I think they have... they've expanded the scope of this in the sense that the HAP that she is now imprisoned by, I don't think it's clearly not her HAP, so to speak. But the impression I get from him is that he knew she was coming, which means he has communicated with her HAP somehow, which I'm very interested to see how that plans.
Also, you think that Scott, Renata, and Rachel are all her people, but you don't think Hunter Percy is not hers? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think he definitely knew she was coming, which means either Scott, Rachel, and Renata have told him that, or I think more likely that her HAP has told him that, maybe by jumping and, I don't know, writing something down and then jumping again so that this guy gets his body back or something like that.
And what is it just a feeling you're getting, or what is it in particular that thinks that this isn't HAP?
But because he says, what does he say? He says something which implies that he expected to meet her, which is not what he would say if it was her HAP. If it was someone who had met her before, he would be wouldn't talk about having expected to meet her. I can't remember the exact line now, but I definitely got the impression that it's like this Hap is meeting her for the first time. So where is her Hap? And I guess the answer is probably with her Homer, wherever he is.
Okay, interesting. And then it ends with Prairie attacking him.
Yeah, just leaping at him.
Yeah, not a good thing to do with the Doctor on your first day in the mental institution. That's
no, and it's not going to get you in the good books of any of the orderlies there.
Yeah, definitely not. All right, well, that is the huge, detail-packed first episode of the second season.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into the roundup?
Yeah, let's do it.
IMDb rating 8.9, a big jump up from last season.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree with that. I think this is a really, really strong episode. There was a lot I loved in this episode. A lot I'm sure I missed as well. Like, I think I was kind of a little bit overwhelmed at times by just how much they were throwing at you. So in some ways, I kind of hope next episode is a little bit leaner, just to give me some time to like kind of reflect on everything that's happened. But in terms of an opening to a season, this was a really strong one.
Yeah, like the tonal shift from the first season was very, like, had a lot of details in it and stuff, but it was very slow, very methodical.
Yeah,
almost like Prairie herself telling a story. That's how it was. And this one was properly like in the big city now, bang, 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 bang. You know, and it was like really.
It's like get on board and get out the way because we're going.
Yeah, and like we talked a little bit before we started recording, but the idea, like it was added to so much. I don't think that this first episode would be seen as such. I'm going to be honest with you, an improvement on the first season in terms of a lot of aspects. I enjoyed the first season a lot, don't get me wrong, but one of the reasons why I love the OA so much is because they just upped it. You know, to me, they completely knocked this second season out of the park compared to how good the first one was for me, and then they were just like upped it. Like they could have failed spectacularly. They didn't.
Yeah.
But the introduction, like, it wouldn't have been as good as it was without Zendaya and Kingsley Benadir. They were fantastic.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree with you. I think in the first season, Britt Marling and Jason Isaacs were having to do a lot of the heavy lifting dramatically. Not to say the rest of the cast are bad actors. I just think they are maybe a little bit more limited, and the writing was a lot more conservative for them. And as you say, it was quite slow paced. And then in this episode, it's like suddenly you've got Kingsley Benadir and Zendaya, who are both brilliant actors. Jason Isaacs is back, so we expect to see more of him. We got some Britt Marling as well. So that's already a huge step up in quality just for the kind of actors you have in the show. But then just the complexity of what they're dealing with here is a massive jump up. You know, they've expanded the scope of the show so brilliantly in this episode that I kind of am stunned by it. I don't know where this show's going to go or how they're going to resolve a lot of what they've thrown out. Obviously, I know they didn't get to make a third season, so there's probably going to be some stuff in this that they don't get to resolve. But it's a really, really marked step up in quality for this season.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. What? Are there any theories that you had that you haven't told us yet?
Let's consult the Matrix. Hold on. So, I don't think Pierre Ruskin designed Q Symphony. Nina was helping Pierre on work similar to Hap's. Nina and Pierre's marriage is a sham. We will never meet the designer of the puzzle. And the markers on the closet door in the penthouse are the symbols of the movements. And then there's also the one with the timeline for Buck/Michelle makes no sense, so there must be an alternate version of each character.
And that's the one the listeners are going to tell us about.
Yeah, that one was kind of confirmed in the same episode, so I don't know whether we'll count that one. But yeah, so those are the big ones coming out of this. But they're, you know, pretty big theories coming out of this episode, which was nice because I think the thing that I noted with the OA when compared to our previous show Dark was that the amount of scope for someone like me who doesn't kind of microanalyze a lot of aspects of shows but kind of just takes things as they come. The scope for someone like me to create theories wasn't as rich as with Dark. Whereas Dark, like even if you're only kind of just watching the show on a fairly surface level, there's still so much to sink your teeth into here. In the first season of the OA, there's less of that. This was like a really promising start to a season in terms of how much they're giving you. So I do hope they give me some room to breathe, because holy shit, I was like, okay, hold on, I need to change gear here, guys. All right, I wasn't ready for this. But it is still very, very exciting for the future.
Imagine being me and waiting 3 years for the next season, and then this is what you get. You're like, what did I just watch?
Have I missed a season? What's happening?
Yeah. Exactly. I will just say, for the listeners who are Konrads, who are going along with us week by week, and for Konrad himself, there is some details from season 1 that appeared in this episode.
Okay.
That you didn't pick up on, it seems. So anyone in the comments, if you want to spoiler tag and chat about that, or come to the Discord and chat about that, we have a different Konrad and Anthony sections on the Discord. You can chat about it there. But there are some big moments in this episode which you did not notice.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm curious now. Someone slide into my DMs and let me know what I missed, so I can look smart on the podcast.
Okay, awesome. We got 1 or 2 comments, so let's go to the YouTube listener questions.
Okay, let's do it.
A stranger from the outside.
First question comes from Helen O'Grady, and if you want to ask a question of your own, put a comment underneath the pinned comment on this video, or send us an email at adpodmail@gmail.com. So Helen says, I just finished watching it, and what the fuck? Well, she said WTF, but I thought it'd be funnier if I said what the fuck. I was not expecting a complete change of narrative, but the way it kind of came together at the end of the episode was good. Questions. What was going on in that room Kareem looked down into? A bunch of people recording their dreams? Why?
Well, I mean, okay, so if we are to understand that from HAP's research, an NDE allows you to travel beyond your physical form, then it kind of stands to reason that through sleep there is an element of that also potentially happening. You know, that you are kind of, your brain is going somewhere else, or your mind is going somewhere else during, like, obviously a much milder version of that. So I'm assuming it's a similar kind of research to that. You know, this idea of projecting the consciousness out into something else while we sleep, that will, I guess, tie back into HAP's research. But it is a good question, because I mean, that's based on me having maybe read an article about people studying what our brains do when we sleep like 5 years ago, as a very much a lay person. So who the fuck knows, Helen, really? It's my answer to that.
Who knows what's going on?
Yeah.
Just wait till you see where Prairie got those marks on her arm, Helen. Your mind's going to be blown too.
Probably Pierre Ruskin.
My favorite moment of the whole show, just so you know, when you find that out. So what's with Nina's boyfriend Pierre Ruskin and the game? Did he get her? This is still Helen, by the way. Did he get her committed because she dumped him in the first scene? Did she know too much? Who is he? If we saw his face in the first scene, they seem to be very obviously hiding his face.
Yeah, I feel like he's probably quite a memorable or well-known actor. If the fact that we haven't seen his face yet, that's my guess on that. To be honest, when we first saw, we see kind of like the side of his head when he's talking on the phone to Nina, and then I think we see him somewhere else as well, but only see kind of like not a full profile. But I was imagining he was going to be played by, I've completely forgotten his name now, but the actor who played like the sniper in Inglourious Bastards, who they make a film about. I cannot remember the actor's name. It's really going to annoy me. But that's who I imagined it was going to be played by, just because he had a similar kind of stature about him. But that is a good question about her being institutionalized when she, she's ostensibly his partner. I think it could be that she kind of broke up with him, or Nina broke up with him beforehand. I think that's probably played into it. I also get the impression that he's working with other people, or is working with at least someone else to help further his research. I don't think he's going to be the genius that he's been set up to be. I think that's too easy. I think there's going to be other people at work behind the scenes who are kind of guiding his hand and his research, who are maybe telling him that, or in this case have maybe told him that Nina isn't who he thinks she is, and have forced him to institutionalize her or something.
Okay, very interesting. Last question from Archmaester Rennie says, does Konrad think we'll stay in the reality we're in during episode 1 for the whole season, or will Prairie jump into another reality?
This is an unfair question, because I always get burned on I always get burned on this. Like, there's no way we'll do a third reality / timeline, and then next episode we're in the 50s. Do I think? There's so much ground to cover in this reality that is it 8 episodes this season as well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That it would be crazy for them to put another reality in this show when they've only just given us the second one. But I'll say yes. I'll say yes. There's going to be another one, just because I've been burned before. But I don't know how they will do it, because it feels like they've not even scratched the surface of what we've got to find and see in this alternate reality.
Okay, so that theory is that we will see another reality in this, or that Prairie will jump to another reality.
I think we'll see one. I don't know if Prairie will be explicitly the one who jumps to it, but I think we'll see another one depicted. Yeah.
Okay, pretty cool. All right, guys, that's us for this week. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back for episode 2 of season 2 next week. Any closing thoughts, Konrad, before I do all the plugs before we go?
My brain doesn't work anymore because of this episode, but I'm looking forward to Pierre Ruskin turning into the Joker in the next episode.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for that either. All right, guys, make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Give the video a like, ring the bell, ding. Send us an email, aodpodmail@gmail.com, if you have questions or even just anything you want to tell us. If you want to ask Konrad a question, leave a question underneath the pinned comment on this video, or email us at that email. There is a t-shirt link underneath if you want to support the podcast. The AD Pod, AD Pod t-shirt, basically. I was going to say AD Pod mail t-shirt. Don't send things to the t-shirt. It will not read them. We also have a link. Well, we don't know. Well, that's true. Also, send us, join the Discord if you want to chat about the shows that we cover. Apart from that, thanks very much for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. The After Dark podcast has been a Culture Cave production. Please subscribe on audio apps as well as on YouTube at The Culture Cave. Join us next week as Konrad journeys further into the unknown.